All right, we are on to part 4 of 4 for chapter 4, socialization, and this will be a real quick last little video. I do want to make one last point about total institution. There are 4 traits of total institution, and one of them is that all aspects are controlled in the same place under a single authority. And I believe that's part of the definition, so that should be pretty clear to you. Secondly is any activities within the institution are conducted in the company of others in the same circumstances. So for example, you have Army recruits or novices in a convent if you're going to become a nun. The third would be the authorities devise rules and schedule activities without consulting the participants. So if you're in boot camp for the military, your sergeant is not going to ask you what time you feel like getting up in the morning. And the last would be all aspects of life within a total institution are designed to fulfill the purpose of the organization itself. So all activities in a monastery might be centered on prayer and communion with God. All activities in a boot camp for the Marines will be centered on becoming ready to be soldiers. So those are the 4 aspects of total institution. These were actually devised by Irving Goffman as well, and if you want to take a second look at those, you can find them on page 92. Okay, we are going to look at socialization as a lifelong process, as we have been. Levinson is a psychologist, and he looked at this process when you transition from one stage into another. He found that one transitional stage begins when the individual gradually enters the adult world. And he also is known for helping to coin the term midlife crisis. And I'm sure if any of you have watched a movie in Hollywood, you probably saw, I have this guy right here in the bottom right hand corner in his red, hot, convertible Mustang probably. We've seen the Hollywood version of a midlife crisis where the guy divorces his wife, he gets a really young hot wife, and he drives a nice new hot rod. It is a stage where men and women realize that they haven't achieved their basic goals and ambitions in life, and so they kind of go through this whole self-evaluative period. It's actually not as common as it seems to be in Hollywood. A midlife crisis is actually quite rare, and not everybody will experience it. Okay, we have a couple last points for this chapter. One is the term sandwich generation. You've actually already defined this in class, which is great. As of 2010, 30 million Americans fall into this term, which is when you have adults who are trying to meet the needs of their parents, so they're taking care of their elderly parents, as well as their kids who could be college graduates that needed to move back in because they couldn't find a job. And this is becoming quite the norm in today's society, especially during our post-recession. We are still experiencing some of the fragments of the recession still today, and probably will continue to throughout the years, especially those people who are in low income, low education families. Those people are still especially being affected by the high unemployment rates of the recession of 2008. Lastly, we're going to talk about the stages of retirement and what those stages are when somebody is adjusting to retirement. So first you start with pre-retirement, which is exactly what it sounds like. A person is preparing to retire. So I know, many people who I've worked with who've retired, they know up to 1, 2, 3, even 4 years in advance. They know the exact time that they're getting ready to retire, and everything is coming down to that year, month or day. As that date gets set, you are in the near phase, and during that time you're almost experiencing like this whole kind of euphoric honeymoon type of feeling where you're thinking about how much you're going to get out there and golf and spend time with your grandkids and knit and go to the beach and get in shape and do things you haven't been able to do for yourself since before you were a parent, for example. And most people experience that. It's, we can even, obviously everybody in this class is not near retirement. You can think about getting ready to start a new job or quit a job or even go on a vacation and you spend all this time thinking about it and being excited about it, and that's exactly what's going on during the near phase. Next, you have the disenchantment phase. So a person retires and it's all really great and exciting for the first month, maybe 2 months, maybe even 6 months, but at a certain point, most people are let down with retirement because it's just not as exciting, and maybe people feel that, especially the traditionalists, so pre-baby boomer generation, really feels the need to contribute and work hard, and it's a part of the value and ethic of people's lives, and you've worked for years and years and years, and then you go from being needed every day to, not having anywhere that you need to be. So there's this feeling of disenchantment, feeling let down. And then, of course, after that, a person needs to become reoriented. So they need to have more realistic expectations of what retirement is going to be like. Realize that it's not always going to be fun and action and excitement. There may be some times of idleness and feeling not needed and just needing to get used to that again. And then, sadly, later in life comes the termination phase, where a person is no longer enjoying the retirement period because they may not be able to care for themselves. And although it's a sad way to end the chapter, that is actually how we are going to end the chapter. And again, I encourage you to review some of the terminology on your own. Go back and read through your notes. Make sure you didn't miss any of the probing questions that I ask you throughout. And I look forward to hearing your own interpretations of the chapter and getting some feedback from you when we come back to class. Thanks, and have a great weekend.